My daughter died 2 years ago, or so they told me. Every month, I wired her husband $1,200 to help raise my twin granddaughters. Then one Tuesday, the mailman handed me a package that wasn't mine. It was addressed to my dead daughter's house, but the name on it was hers, and the shipping date was last week. I'm grateful you're here with me right now. Before we get into this, tell me something. Where are you listening from today? Drop your city or country in the comments. I'd love to know who's out there. One small note before we begin. Some details in this story have been adjusted for storytelling purposes. Any resemblance to real people or events is coincidental, but the lesson at the heart of it is as real as it gets. Now, let me take you back to where it started. The post office on Crane Street in Savannah, Georgia, smells the same way it did 40 years ago. Old paper, cheap ink, and the faint sweetness of stamp glue. I've been going there every Tuesday since I retired, picking up mail, buying stamps for letters nobody writes anymore. I'm 63 years old. My name is Harold, and until that Tuesday in September, I thought I understood my life. I'd been a carpenter for 37 years. Built porches, fixed roofs, framed houses across Chatham County. My hands look like a road map of every job I ever took. Calluses on calluses, a crooked pinky from a hammer miss in '04, and knuckles that ache when the humidity rolls in from the coast. But these hands built things. Good things. Things that lasted. My wife, Dolores, passed 6 years ago. Pancreatic cancer. Took her in 4 months flat. She was 61, still wearing her Sunday hat to church, still humming gospel while she cooked. One scan changed everything. After her funeral, I sat in our kitchen for 3 days straight, eating nothing, talking to a rocking chair like she was still in it. We had one child, our daughter, Renee. She was the kind of girl who lit up every room she walked into. Smart, stubborn, laughed too loud at her own jokes. She married a man named Victor when she was 28. He was a financial consultant from Atlanta, polished shoes, firm handshake, the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the most important person in the room. I liked him. Dolores loved him. Renee worshipped him. They gave us twin girls, Sophie and Elise. Born on a rainy March afternoon, 6 pounds each, screaming like they owned the world. Those babies became my reason to breathe after Dolores died. I drove 40 minutes to their house every Saturday, rain or shine, just to sit on the floor and play dollhouse. Sophie was the quiet one, always drawing in her notebook. Elise was fire, climbing everything, afraid of nothing. Then Renee died. March 22nd, 2 years ago. Victor called me at 7 in the morning. His voice was flat, mechanical. Harold, there's been an accident. Renee was driving home from her night shift at the hospital. She was a nurse, had been for 9 years. Wet road, poor visibility. Her car went off the overpass on I-16 near Macon. By the time paramedics arrived, she was gone. I don't remember what I said. I remember my knees hitting the kitchen tile. I remember the phone sliding out of my hand. I remember hearing Victor's voice from the floor, tinny and small, saying, "Harold, are you there?" The funeral was closed casket. Victor said the impact was too severe. I never saw my daughter's face again. I stood over that mahogany box and pressed my palm against the wood and whispered goodbye to the girl who used to fall asleep in my lap watching Saturday cartoons. After the funeral, grief settled into my house like a permanent guest. I stopped taking carpentry jobs, stopped going to church, stopped eating right, lost 20 pounds in 2 months. My neighbor, Frank, started leaving plates of food on my porch because he knew I wasn't cooking. Then Victor came to see me. 6 weeks after the funeral, he sat in my living room, hands folded, eyes red. He told me Renee had left behind medical school debt, student loans she'd been paying off for years. $48,000 still outstanding. The payments were $1,400 a month, with 2 4-year-old girls and only his salary. He couldn't cover it all. "I need help, Harold," he said, "just until the loan is paid off. Maybe 3.5 years. After that, I'll manage on my own. What could I do? My granddaughters needed a roof. They needed food, clothes, stability, and Renee would have wanted me to step up, so I agreed. $1,200 a month. I'd pull from my retirement savings, pick up odd carpentry jobs around the neighborhood, fix porches and cabinets for cash. It would be tight, but I'd manage. I set up an automatic transfer. The first of every month, $1,200 moved from my account to Victor's. Like clockwork. For 2 years, I made that payment. 24 payments. $28,800 total. I drove to Victor's house every Saturday to see the girls. Brought them coloring books and juice boxes, sat on the living room floor while they showed me their drawings and told me stories about kindergarten. But something changed over those 2 years. Victor got colder. Distant. The first few months, he'd invite me in for coffee, let me stay for dinner. Then the visits got shorter. He'd meet me at the door, let me see the girls for an hour, then say they needed a bath or it was bedtime. By the second year, he barely opened the door. He'd push Sophie and Elise out onto the porch, say he had a work call, and disappear inside. I told myself it was grief. Everybody handles loss differently. Victor lost his wife. He was raising twins alone. Of course he was stressed. Of course he was pulling away. But something else was off. Something I couldn't name. A feeling in my gut. The same feeling I get when I'm framing a wall and the measurements don't line up. Everything looks right on the surface. But underneath, something is crooked. I ignored it. For 2 years, I ignored it. Until that Tuesday at the post office. I was standing at the counter buying a book of stamps when Patty, the clerk, waved me over. "Mr. Harold," she said, "we got a package here that went to your box by mistake. Must have been a sorting error." She handed me a small brown parcel, about the size of a shoebox. I looked at the label. The delivery address was 714 Whitaker Lane, Victor's house, but the name on it stopped my heart. Renee Mitchell Price, priority mail. Shipped from Portland, Oregon. Dated September 8th. 5 days ago. I read the name 3 times. Renee Mitchell Price. My daughter's maiden name combined with her married name. The name she used on her nursing license, on her hospital badge, on every official document she ever signed, and the package was shipped 5 days ago. My daughter had been dead for 2 years. I stood there in that post office, stamps in one hand, package in the other, and the floor tilted beneath me. Patty said something, but I didn't hear it. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Someone behind me coughed. I walked to my truck and sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at that label. Renee Mitchell Price. Portland, Oregon. September 8th. There had to be an explanation. Someone using her name, maybe. Identity theft. A mistake. But the handwriting on the return label, small, precise, slightly left slanting. I knew that handwriting. I'd seen it on birthday cards, grocery lists, and the little notes Renee used to stick on my fridge. "Don't forget your blood pressure pills, Dad. Love you." That was my daughter's handwriting. I drove home with the package on the passenger seat. I didn't open it. I just sat in my driveway, engine off, staring through the windshield at nothing. My mind was racing, but my body wouldn't move. If Renee was alive, then the funeral was a lie. The closed casket, the mahogany box, the flowers and the prayers, all a lie. The debt story, the monthly payments, Victor's grief, all lies. And if Renee was alive, then Dolores died 6 years ago, never knowing her daughter would fake her own death. At least she was spared that. But I wasn't. I needed help. Someone I trusted. Someone who could think clearly when I couldn't. I called my brother, Curtis. He was 71, retired police sergeant, 32 years on the Savannah-Chatham force. Sharp as a razor and twice as stubborn. He answered on the second ring. "Harold, what's wrong?" He could always tell from my voice. "I need you to come over. Right now. Bring your reading glasses." Curtis arrived in 15 minutes. I showed him the package without saying a word. He read the label, looked at me, read it again. "That's Renee's handwriting," he said quietly. "I know." Curtis sat down at my kitchen table, pulled on his glasses, and studied the label like he was reading a crime scene report. The return address is a P.O. box in Portland. No sender name, just the box number. "And this shipped 5 days ago. 5 days after my daughter's been dead for 2 years," I said. Curtis was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Harold, we need to open this package." I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me wanted to drive to Victor's house, hand him the package, and let him explain. But the bigger part of me, the part that had felt something crooked for 2 years, that part needed the truth. I cut the tape with a kitchen knife. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a small wooden jewelry box, hand-carved, walnut, with a brass clasp. I recognized it immediately. I'd made it, 20 years ago, for Renee's 16th birthday. She'd kept it on her dresser her entire life. Inside the jewelry box was a folded note. I opened it with trembling hands. The note was short, 6 words in Renee's handwriting. "Dad, I'm sorry. Please find me." Curtis read it over my shoulder. Neither of us spoke for a long time. I put the note down on the table, and my vision blurred. Not from tears. Not yet. From something deeper. The kind of blur that comes when everything you believe turns out to be painted on glass, and the glass just cracked. "Dad, I'm sorry. Please find me." She was alive. My daughter was alive. And she was asking for help. Curtis took charge. He pulled out a notepad and started writing. "We need to work this methodically, Harold. No emotions. Not yet. First, we verify. Then we investigate. Then we act." I nodded, though my hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Step 1, Curtis said. I'm going to run the P.O. box in Portland. See who registered it. What other mail has been sent from it. I still have contacts in law enforcement up and down the coast. Step 2, we look at Victor, his finances, his story, his behavior. If Renee's alive and hiding, Victor either knows about it or caused it. Step 3, we don't tell anyone. Not the girls, not Victor, nobody. If Victor's involved in whatever this is, we can't tip him off." I agreed, but there was something I had to do first. That Saturday, I drove to Victor's house like I always did. Same route, same time. I parked in front of the white colonial with the manicured lawn and the American flag hanging from the porch. Victor answered the door in a polo shirt and khakis, his smile automatic and practiced. "Harold, the girls are finishing lunch. Give them 10 minutes. I nodded and waited on the porch. Through the window, I could see Sophie and Elise at the kitchen table, eating sandwiches. A woman walked past behind them. Tall, dark hair, maybe 35. She was carrying a glass of water. She set it down next to Elise and touched her shoulder. I froze. "Who is that?" I asked when Victor came back. He glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. His expression didn't change. "That's Karen. She helps out with the girls after school. Kind of like a nanny." "A nanny?" I repeated. Victor shrugged. "I can't do everything alone, Harold. Karen's been great with them. They love her." I watched Karen through the window. She was sitting at the table now, laughing with the twins. Comfortable. Familiar. Not like someone who'd been hired. Like someone who lived there. "How long has she been helping out?" I asked. "About 8 months, Victor said." I didn't push it. I played with the girls for an hour, then drove home. But that night, I called Curtis. "There's a woman at Victor's house. He says she's a nanny, but it doesn't feel right." Curtis was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I ran that P.O. box. It was registered 4 months ago under the name R.M. Price. Same initials as Renee Mitchell Price. And Harold, there's more." "What?" I pulled Victor's financial records. Took some doing, but an old colleague in the fraud unit helped me out. "Your $1,200 a month, it goes into his checking account. But within 48 hours, he transfers it to a savings account under a different name. Whose name? Curtis paused. Karen Bellworth. The nanny. I felt the room tilt. The woman in Victor's house, the one playing with my granddaughters and laughing at the kitchen table, was receiving my money. How much is in that account? I asked. Curtis exhaled slowly. Including your transfers and other deposits, about $73,000. And Harold, there's something else. Victor's been collecting Renee's life insurance. $200,000, paid out 9 months after the death certificate was filed. Plus her employer's death benefit, another $50,000. The insurance money went into a brokerage account. The death benefit went into the same savings account as your money, the one under Karen's name. I did the math in my head. $250,000 in insurance, $28,000 from me, plus whatever else Victor had been funneling. Over $300,000, all built on the lie that my daughter was dead. But she wasn't dead. She was in Portland, sending me a jewelry box and 6 desperate words. Something didn't add up. If Renee was alive, how did Victor collect life insurance? You need a death certificate for that. You need a body, or proof of death. The car accident on I-16, the closed casket, the story about the impact being too severe. Curtis, I said slowly, was there ever a real accident? That's what I'm checking next, he said. I'm pulling the incident report from the Macon PD. If there was a wreck on I-16 that night, there'll be a record. If there wasn't, we know Victor fabricated the whole thing. He called me back the next morning. I was sitting on the porch, watching the sun come up over the live oaks, Spanish moss swaying in the breeze. Harold, Curtis said, there was no accident, no collision report, no emergency response, no tow truck dispatch for I-16 on March 22nd. I checked the entire week. Nothing. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. The death certificate was filed by a Dr. Raymond Salas in Macon. I looked him up. His medical license was revoked 3 years ago for fraudulent documentation. He's been running a side business, forging death certificates, insurance claims, immigration papers. Victor paid a disgraced doctor to fake Renee's death, I said. That's what it looks like, Curtis said. And if Renee's alive and hiding in Portland, either she ran from Victor, or Victor forced her out and kept the girls. I thought about the note. Dad, I'm sorry. Please find me. That wasn't the note of someone who'd left willingly. That was a cry for help. Before I tell you what we found in Portland, I need you to do something for me. If you're still listening right now, comment, I'm still here. That's all. 3 words. Because what comes next is the part that nearly broke me. And I need to know someone's out there hearing this. This story contains some elements added for narrative purposes. Not every detail is factual. But the lesson is real. If that doesn't work for you, no hard feelings. But if you're in this with me, let's keep going. Curtis and I flew to Portland on a Wednesday. We told Victor I was visiting a cousin in Atlanta. He didn't ask questions. He never asked questions about my life. Portland in October was gray and damp, the kind of cold that sticks to your skin. We rented a car and drove to the post office where the P.O. box was registered. Curtis flashed his retired sergeant credentials and sweet-talked the manager into giving us the box rental agreement. The signature matched Renee's handwriting perfectly. We staked out the post office for 2 days. Thursday, nothing. Friday morning at 11:15 a.m., a woman walked in wearing a green rain jacket with the hood pulled up. She was thin, much thinner than I remembered. She walked to box 1247, opened it with a key, and pulled out a stack of mail. When she turned around, I saw her face. My legs buckled. Curtis caught my arm. It was Renee, thinner, older, her hair cut short and dyed darker than its natural color. But her eyes, Dolores's eyes, deep brown with flecks of gold. I'd know those eyes if I lived 1,000 years. She didn't see us. She tucked the mail into her jacket and walked out. We followed her on foot, keeping a block behind. She walked 12 blocks to a small apartment building on a side street. 3 stories. Brick. Fire escape on the side. She went inside. 3rd floor, apartment 3. B. Curtains drawn. Curtis wrote down the address. Then we went back to the car and sat in silence. "She's alive," I said. The words came out like a prayer. "Yeah," Curtis said, "she is." I wanted to run to that building, bang on the door, grab my daughter and hold her. But Curtis stopped me. "We don't know the full picture yet, Harold. If Victor forced her out, if he threatened her, we need to understand what we're walking into. We go in blind, we could put her in danger." He was right. But God, it hurt to wait. That evening, I went alone. Curtis argued, but I told him this was something a father had to do by himself. I climbed those stairs slowly, my bad hip aching, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I stood outside 3B and raised my hand to knock. I hesitated. 2 years of believing my daughter was dead. 2 years of grief, of monthly payments, of watching my granddaughters grow up in a house built on lies. And she was right here, behind this door, 10 feet away. I knocked 3 times. Soft. Silence. Then footsteps. Then the sound of a chain sliding. The door opened 4 inches. Renee's face appeared in the gap. When she saw me, her hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears. "Dad?" "Hey, baby girl," I said. My voice broke on the second word. She yanked the chain off and threw the door open and fell into my arms. She was shaking, sobbing, gripping my jacket like she was afraid I'd disappear. I held her so tight I could feel her heartbeat against my chest, fast and desperate. "I'm sorry," she kept saying. "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry." I guided her inside and closed the door. The apartment was small, clean but sparse. A futon, a folding table, a laptop, a few books. No photos on the walls. It looked like someone who was ready to run at any moment. We sat on the futon. She couldn't stop crying. I held her hands and waited. When she finally spoke, the story came out in jagged pieces. Victor had been controlling her for years, she said. It started small. He managed their finances, made all the decisions, told her what to wear, who to see, when to speak. After the twins were born, it got worse. He isolated her from friends, monitored her phone, checked the mileage on her car. If she came home 15 minutes late from a shift, he'd interrogate her for an hour. Then it turned physical. Not often. Not where anyone could see. A grabbed wrist here, a shove there. Once, he pushed her into a door frame and told her she tripped. She tried to leave twice. Both times, Victor threatened to take the girls. He said he had connections, lawyers, people who would make sure she never saw Sophie and Elise again. He told her no court would believe a nurse with student debt over a financial consultant with a 6-figure income. Then Victor came up with the plan. He'd found Dr. Salas through a client. For $15,000, Salas would produce a death certificate, complete with a fabricated accident report. Victor would collect the life insurance, the death benefit, and my monthly payments. Renee would disappear. New city, new name, no contact with anyone. He said it was the only way, Renee whispered. He said if I didn't cooperate, he'd take the girls and I'd never see them again. He said he'd tell everyone I was unstable, that I'd abandoned my family. He said nobody would believe me. "Why didn't you call me?" I asked, my voice raw. "I would have come. I would have done anything." She looked at me with those broken eyes. "He monitored everything, Dad. My phone, my email, my mail. He had tracking software on my laptop. The only reason I was able to send that package was because I saved money for months to rent the P.O. box under a name he wouldn't recognize. I was terrified he'd find out." I pulled her close. She pressed her face into my shoulder, and I felt her tears soak through my shirt. "The jewelry box," I said. "The one I made you. It was the only thing I took with me." she said. The only thing I had left of home. I held my daughter in that bare apartment in Portland, and I made her a promise. We are going to get those girls back, and Victor is going to answer for every single thing he's done. She looked at me, scared but hopeful. How? I squeezed her hand. Your Uncle Curtis is downstairs. And we've been building a case. We flew back to Savannah with Renee. She stayed at Curtis's house, hidden. The next week was a blur of preparation. Curtis contacted his old partner, Detective Linda Monroe, who now worked domestic violence cases for the county DA's office. We presented everything. The fake death certificate, Dr. Salas's revoked license, Victor's financial records showing the insurance payout and the money funneled to Karen Bellworth's account, the bank transfers of my $1,200, Renee's testimony about the abuse and coercion. Linda's face went hard as she reviewed the documents. This is textbook financial fraud and coercive control, she said. We can get warrants by Friday. But there was a complication. Karen. Curtis had been digging into Karen Bellworth. She wasn't just a nanny. She and Victor had been in a relationship for over a year, since before Renee's fake death. Phone records showed they'd been communicating for 18 months. Karen's social media, set to private but accessed through Linda's warrant, was full of photos of her and Victor together. Dinners, vacations, weekends away. In several photos, Sophie and Elise were there too, calling Karen by her first name, hugging her, sitting on her lap. Victor hadn't just erased Renee. He'd replaced her. And the money. Karen's savings account held $73,000. But there was also a joint brokerage account under Victor and Karen's names containing $160,000. They'd been investing the insurance money, growing it, planning something. Curtis found flight reservations, 2 adult tickets and 2 child tickets. Savannah to Zurich, Switzerland. Departure date, November 3rd. 3 weeks away. He's taking the girls out of the country, Curtis said, his voice grim. With Karen. New life, new country. And once they're in Switzerland, good luck getting those kids back. I felt ice run through my veins. My granddaughters, Sophie and Elise, 5 years old, about to be taken across an ocean by a man who'd faked their mother's death and a woman who'd helped him spend the money. We moved fast. On Friday morning, Linda Monroe and 2 officers arrived at 714 Whitaker Lane at 7:15 a.m. Curtis and I waited in his car across the street. Renee was at Curtis's house with a family services advocate, safe but terrified. Victor answered the door in his bathrobe, coffee in hand. His smile faltered when he saw the badges. Victor Price? Linda said. We have a warrant for your arrest on charges of insurance fraud, identity fraud, filing false death certificates, and financial exploitation of a dependent adult. You have the right to remain silent. Victor's coffee cup hit the porch tiles and shattered. His face went white. This is a mistake, he stammered. I don't know what you're talking about. Linda held up a folder. We have the fake death certificate signed by Dr. Raymond Salas. We have your insurance claim filed 9 days after the fabricated accident. We have bank records showing $250,000 in fraudulent payouts. We have $28,800 in transfers from Harold Mitchell, your father-in-law, obtained under false pretenses. And we have testimony from your wife, Renee Mitchell Price, who is alive and well and has been living in hiding because you threatened to take her children if she didn't cooperate. Victor's mouth opened and closed. His eyes darted past Linda to the street, where he saw me standing beside Curtis's car. Harold, he called out. Harold, you don't understand. I walked forward slowly. 2 years, Victor. You looked me in the eye every month. You took my money. You let me grieve my daughter while she was hiding in a one-room apartment, terrified of you. It wasn't like that, Victor said, his voice rising. She wanted to leave. She agreed to the plan. She agreed. Because you threatened her, I said. Because you told her she'd never see her girls again. Karen appeared behind Victor in the hallway, her face pale. What's going on? Linda turned to her. Karen Bellworth. You're also under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and accessory to filing false documents. Karen's eyes went wide. I didn't do anything. Victor told me she left. He said she abandoned the family. I didn't know. Your bank account says otherwise. Curtis called from the sidewalk. $73,000 in transfers from the man who faked his wife's death. Hard to claim you didn't know. Karen started crying. Victor lunged for the door, but an officer caught his arm and pinned it behind his back. Handcuffs clicked. Karen was cuffed moments later, tears streaming down her face. Then Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs, clutching a stuffed rabbit. "Grandpa?" "Hey, sweetheart," I said, my voice cracking. "Come here." She ran down the stairs and into my arms. Elise was right behind her, barefoot, confused, scared. I knelt on that porch and held both of them while the officers led Victor and Karen to the patrol cars. "Where are they taking Daddy?" Elise asked. I looked at my granddaughters, these two small faces looking up at me with Dolores's eyes and Renee's stubborn chin. "Your daddy made some wrong choices," I said carefully. "But you're safe, and there's someone who's been waiting a very long time to see you." I drove Sophie and Elise to Curtis's house. Renee was standing on the porch when we pulled up. She'd been pacing for an hour, biting her nails, watching the road. When the girls saw her, they froze. Sophie whispered, "Mommy?" Renee dropped to her knees, arms open, tears pouring down her face. The girls ran to her. They collided in a tangle of arms and sobs and "I love yous" that echoed down the quiet street. I stood by the car watching. Curtis came up beside me and put his hand on my shoulder. Neither of us said anything. There was nothing to say. 4 months later, the courtroom was full. I sat in the second row, with Sophie on my left and Elise on my right. Renee sat in front of us with her attorney. Curtis was beside me, arms crossed, jaw set. Victor was found guilty of insurance fraud, identity fraud, filing false documents, coercive control, and financial exploitation. The judge sentenced him to 14 years in federal prison, ordered full restitution of all fraudulently obtained funds, and permanently revoked his parental rights pending Renee's custody petition. Karen Bellworth was found guilty of conspiracy and accessory charges. She received 4 years in prison and was ordered to return all funds in her accounts. Dr. Raymond Salas, who had been arrested separately, pleaded guilty to multiple counts of document forgery. He received 7 years. When the judge read Victor's sentence, he stared straight ahead, expressionless. He didn't look at me, didn't look at Renee, didn't look at the girls. The man who'd smiled his way through 2 years of lies didn't have a single word left. Outside the courthouse, Renee hugged me. "Thank you, Dad, for not giving up, for finding me." I held her tight. "That's what fathers do, baby girl." The restitution order returned $287,000 in total. Renee used part of it to rent a small house near mine in Savannah, 3 bedrooms, a big backyard, and a porch with a swing. I used my portion, $28,800, to set up education accounts for Sophie and Elise. I reopened my workshop in the garage. Saturday mornings now, Sophie and Elise come over. I'm teaching them how to use a tape measure, how to sand wood smooth, how to build something with their hands. Sophie's careful and precise. Elise is fearless and fast. They remind me of Renee and Dolores in ways that make my chest ache with something I'd almost forgotten: joy. Last Sunday, the 4 of us drove to the cemetery. We stood at Dolores's headstone, the live oaks making shade, the Spanish moss swaying. Renee placed a bouquet of gardenias on the stone, Dolores's favorite. "Mom," Renee said quietly, "I'm home. I'm sorry it took so long." Sophie tugged my hand. "Grandpa, is Grandma happy now?" I looked down at her. This small, serious face with her grandmother's eyes. "I think she's very happy, sweetheart. I think she's been watching over all of us." That evening, Renee and the girls stayed for dinner. I made fried chicken, collard greens, and cornbread. Dolores's recipe, right down to the pinch of cayenne in the breading. The girls ate like they'd never tasted food before. Renee laughed. A real laugh. The kind I hadn't heard in years. The The kitchen smelled like home. The table was full. The house was warm. After dinner, I sat on the porch alone for a few minutes. The sky over Savannah was turning pink and orange, the air thick with jasmine and salt from the river. I could hear the girls inside, arguing about whose turn it was to pick the movie. I thought about those 2 years. The money, the grief, the monthly payments I made to a man who was stealing my daughter's life. I thought about the package at the post office, the jewelry box I'd carved with my own hands 20 years ago, the 6 words that changed everything. Dad, I'm sorry. Please find me. I almost missed it. If the mail hadn't been sorted wrong, if that package had gone to Victor's house like it was supposed to, I might never have known. Renee might still be hiding in Portland. The girls might be in Switzerland right now, growing up calling another woman mom. But God works in ways I can't explain. A sorting error at a post office, a package in the wrong box, and a father who still knew his daughter's handwriting. If you're listening to this, here's what I want you to remember. When something feels wrong, pay attention. Don't ignore the crooked feeling in your gut. I ignored mine for 2 years, and it cost me $28,000, 2 years of grief, and 2 years of my granddaughter's childhood. Protect the people you love. Ask the hard questions. And if someone you trust is telling a story that doesn't add up, dig deeper. The truth doesn't hide forever. It just waits for someone brave enough to look. Forgiveness is powerful, but it doesn't erase consequences. I don't carry hatred for Victor. Hatred is a weight I'm too old to bear, but justice was served, and my family is whole again. That's enough. And one more thing. Cherish every moment with the people who matter. Dolores is gone. I can't get those years back. But I've got Renee, Sophie, and Elise. And every Saturday morning in my workshop, every Sunday dinner with fried chicken and cornbread, every bedtime story and goodnight kiss. Those moments are the real treasure. No one can steal those. Thank you for staying with me until the end. Your time is valuable, and I'm grateful you spent it here. If this story touched you, leave a comment below. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel for more stories about truth, justice, and the quiet strength of family. One final note. This story may contain fictional elements created for educational and storytelling purposes. If this kind of content isn't for you, feel free to find something that better fits. But if you're here for real lessons about faith, resilience, and the bonds that hold families together, welcome. You're exactly where you belong.